is a very different solution to taking care of the circular debt. You're saying consumers really won't be burdened?
We've already reduced it by about 800 billion rupees last year, and that's how it will come down to zero in 6 years. Last year, the bureaucrats actually stopped listening to you, so I don't have to be relying on my secretaries or additional secretaries.
We needed establishment support to deal with that?
The fact is that Pakistan has already gone through a solar revolution. There is no method to the madness, as we say.
Thank you very much, Awais Leghari Sahab. It's such a pleasure to have you on my program, Context with AasiyaRiaz. And what I'm really looking forward to talk to you about, a very candid look at how Pakistan can power its future without burdening the next generation. And I'll go right in with the new plan that your ministry has just outlined, which government is saying is a very different solution to taking care of the circular debt. Can you tell us what that is, how you're aiming to get the results within the next 6 years, and you're saying consumers really won't be burdened?
Ji, Bismillah, it's a pleasure being on your show. Thank you so much for inviting me. The circular debt elimination program has two basic components of it. One is trying to maintain the circular debt at its own level, just to ensure that there aren't any more recovery issues and the losses that incur every year to add on to the circular debt. So that comes in because we are able to harvest that due to efficiencies that we bring into the governance structure of the distribution companies. The other is to try to get rid of the already piled up debt, which was 2.4 trillion rupees when we inherited it. We've already reduced it by about 800 billion rupees last year, and that was due to three things. One was our renegotiations with the IPPs that we had. So through those renegotiations, we were able to get them to waive off all the late payment charges that were a part of the debt. The other was because of efficiencies that we brought into the discos. We reduced the losses of the discos by 193 billion rupees. And we had actually budgeted an amount which was equivalent to 580 billion rupees. So when we made fewer losses, we translated and diverted all that money into settling some part of the debt. And the other was because of the reduction in the interest rates and the stabilization of the rupee value vis-a-vis the dollar. Now, the rest of it, which is about 1.2 trillion rupees, we had to pay a financial cost for this 1.2 trillion rupees that was due to the IPPs. That was a lot more than what the financial cost of money right now is. So we've swapped that debt into a much cheaper one, bringing down the financial cost of that debt. And we are going to be servicing that with the same amount of debt service surcharge that the consumers are paying today. So the consumers would not be burdened with anything more, but they would continue to pay this debt service surcharge for the next 6 years. Had we not done this, the amount of circular debt would have remained the same even 6 years from now. So what we've done is we've acquired a much cheaper Islamic financed loan and have converted that into a repayment schedule for these IPPs. And that's what's happening, and that's how it will come down to zero in 6 years.
So the per unit surcharge that consumers are paying is rupees 3.23 per unit, and that you're saying is not going to change in the next 6 years?
That's not going to change in the next 6 years because that is required to service this particular debt.
So is there a sort of a number, or is there a figure that you can give to us that people can verify by 2026 to know that your plan is delivering results?
There would be no DSS in the year 2029.
Okay.
So that's how you can...
So you remain on track and we're just supposed to take...
We remain on track and we report the circular debt figures every month. It's available on the website. So that gives you a clear picture on where the circular debt is. And that's one of the requirements of the IMF. We need to report that to the IMF and have it published on our website every month.
Response that you get from the leading media, they're still saying the figures that the ministry is giving are not quite clear how those losses are going to be dealt with.
You see, there are... Well, first of all, if I reduce the losses and improve the recoveries, there is not going to be any difference in the price of power for people. This is the burden that the Q block or the Ministry of Finance actually takes and gives it to us as a budgetary requirement that we have. And from that we pay all these, the cost of the losses and the recoveries. So that was actually budgeted as 580 or 90 some billion rupees last year. We brought that down by 193 billion. So now the Ministry of Power is 193 billion rupees less of a burden on the exchequer than it was the last year. I'll just give you a specific example. When I came in as a minister, year 24-25, our budget was 1.2 trillion rupees. So that is what the exchequer paid the power division, and we paid it in the form of the subsidies that we give to AJK and FATA and the tariff differential subsidies across the country to keep the tariff uniform. Every company has its own cost of providing electricity. So we have to balance that out. Some companies are more expensive, some are less, but we have a uniform tariff across the country. The other was, so we had to pay 1.2 trillion rupees we had to get from the finance ministry. That has reduced to 890 billion rupees only. So in 1 year, my power division is 400 billion rupees less of a burden on the exchequer and on the taxpayers' money. So those are the exact specific numbers. I stand by those numbers, and any amount of the data can be provided to prove that they're right.
Now you've come to this ministry second time around. What is it that you learned the first time that you're now applying? I
was in for a year only last time, 17 to 18. That was the last year of the PMLN government. I was the minister under Shahid Khaqan Abbasi. Last year, the bureaucrats actually stopped listening to you. So I was able to get a good feel of what the sector is like. I got to know what the issues are. But this time I've had about 18 months and we've been able to bring into place certain reforms within the governance structure of the ministry itself. So what I am blessed with now is a very good team of professionals that are in the form of a technical arm of the ministry. So I don't have to be relying on my secretaries or additional secretaries or joint secretaries only, who are not power sector experts at all, nor am I. I'm a policymaker and they're administration expert. The other thing is that the entire federal government is behind me and is supporting me. So had it been just the power division itself, I wouldn't have been able to achieve the renegotiations of the IPP contracts. I wouldn't have been able to achieve the recent Karachi electric tariff revision that we have been able to achieve in the recent past. And those kinds of things used to go completely, they used to be ignored in the past. And the power division never used to be looking at this. The other thing, which is different now is, and because of the support of the Prime Minister and the establishment both, so we are working hand in glove, is that there is a huge amount of backing that the power division is getting right now in resisting any kind of pressures coming in from within and from outside the country. So no vested interests are taking precedence over national interest. And there are many examples to show, to prove that.
For instance?
For instance, the Karachi electric tariff issue, for instance, mediation issues, for instance, arbitration issues that keep occurring within the power division, where negotiations used to take place before and
And we
now.
needed establishment support to deal with them?
I think we need the entire government support. And yes, the establishment, the judiciary, the bureaucracy, everybody has to kick in, and we have to work together to be able to achieve what we need to achieve, because it's a complete change in the way the government works. And if there is any support being extended from any of these very important arms, it completely cripples the entire process and the entire effort that we make towards improvement of the existing system.
Now, another issue that you deal with, it's the net metering, the new versus old customers. And, you know, there is an entire conversation just, you know, this week, Economist reported that Pakistan imported nearly 16 gigawatts of Chinese-made solar panels between 2022 and 2024. And it's, of course, a massive rooftop boom. And if the government now plans to halve the buyback rate to rupees 11.3, will those existing net metering users be grandfathered? Or, you know, you're only just looking at the new users? What's going to happen to the people who made good faith sort of purchases and switched to solar earlier?
Asya, the fact is that Pakistan has already gone through a solar revolution.
Yes.
We are not in the middle of it, we are beyond it. And Pakistan should be proud of the fact of to have actually authored a renewable energy revolution. And what actually pushed people to do that is the high cost of electricity on the grid. So people went off grid. People have started complementing the power that they get from the grid by their own resources. In Pakistan, within Pakistan, there are 33,000 megawatts of solar panels installed as we speak. Out of those, about 6,500 to 7,000 are connected to the grid through net metering systems.
Yes.
So the entire realm of solar distributed power generation is much bigger than the net metering connections. But the net meter owners, which are a total of 450,000 on the grid, it used to be just 170,000 a year and a half ago. These owners of net meters are actually enjoying windfall profits. They have the right to have a good rate of return on the investment that they make. They have a right to produce power for themselves and utilize it and give it back to the grid when they're not in their homes. But they need to do it in an economically efficient manner. The system itself, the country, and the other 34 million consumers on the grid need to afford their net metering presence. Right now, the payback period of a net metering system or a net metered system is a year and a half. We want this to be rationalized to a point where it can pay you back in about 2.5 to 3 years, which is a very good rate of return. This has happened across the world. Renewable energy global leaders like California, Germany, Australia, the Scandinavian countries, all these countries have reviewed their regulations and brought into place a system that is both affordable by the grid and for the consumers. And it's not just affordability, it's also the crazy amount of instability that's appearing on the grid. So when you have so much distributed solar and the grid does not require anything in the daytime, it almost has come down to 5,000 megawatts. So we have a famous thing called the duck curve. The duck curve is when in the evenings and at night you need a lot more, and the demand comes down, it stays down, and then it goes up again.
Yes.
So it's shaped in the form of a duck. That duck curve has now transformed into a snake curve for us. So it's a big dip.
Yeah, but what does it mean for new and old customers?
I think, in my humble
Essentially.
opinion, In my humble opinion, if the contractual obligations are not breached, both the new ones and the existing ones need to be at the same
At
level.
the same rate.
At the same rate. But if the contractual obligations are to breach, then we will make sure that our contractual obligations are not breached with the existing consumers. But the new ones surely have to come on to the new rates, which will still ensure them.
And that's the rate of 11.3 rupees?
No, not necessarily. We might be able to, or we'll be asking the NEPRA, or the consumers will be asking NEPRA to link it to the energy cost of electricity. So whatever we buy from the pool.
So it's still a very fluid thing.
No, it's going to be, that rate has remained between 9 and 11 rupees in the past 1 year.
Not going to change much.
So no, it's if at all it's going to improve, because our mix of energy is improving every year. Our renewable energy is kicking in, the hydro part of energy is improving. So we might be able to link it with that for the new ones. For the existing ones, only to the extent of where we don't breach the contract, we might be able to change it from net metering to net billing. So everything you give to the grid, you give at a certain rate, and then you take from the grid at whatever rates are applicable during the course of 24 hours.
Now I was looking at your ex-bio, and you call yourself passionate about water conservation, and of course solar powered water generation, tube wells, etc. have completely revolutionized, of course, the cost that a farmer has to pay. But that also means that its solar-powered farming is actually digging Pakistan into a water catastrophe of sorts. You know, people are sort of taking out much more water than, and we feel the crunch of that because we already had a falling water table, and it's worsening. So when you look at it from the portfolio that you have of public policy, looking at it from the power sort of perspective, especially in Punjab, is there any subsidies to groundwater limits? Are there any smart flow meters or time of day restrictions? Something that takes into account what this is doing to our sort of solar tube well use and all of that?
The tube well issue has two completely separate parts to it. The solarized tube well issue. One is the part where you dig a well into the ground and you extract water out of it to be used either for agriculture or for your home use or whatever, or for commercial purpose. That part needs to be regulated in the strictest manner. Pakistan's underground sweet water reserves are being depleted by the hour. It's going down. It is actually scary. So the sweet water
we were suffering at least in Punjab because of what Indian Punjab was able to sort of do on that already.
But all over the country, even in a place like Balochistan, KPK, everywhere. So the sweet water zones have now converted into semi-brackish water zones. So the brackish water is actually creeping into those sweet water zones that used to be there for people to exploit. But there is no method to the madness, as we say. Everybody is digging a hole wherever they want, however they want, and they are extracting water out of it. So that part needs to be regulated for sure. I am all in favor of that.
It's not at the moment, not provincially,
no. There is no regulation in place at all in any of the provinces that I know of. The other part is what source of energy is actually used to extract the water. So irrespective of whether it's solar or it's fossil fuel based engines or it's electricity, people are going to extract the same amount of water that they need.
Not if it costs them far too much.
No. Whatever they need, they were paying a higher cost of it. So whoever is, say, cultivating a piece of land that's 8 or 10 acres, just as an example, he or she are going to pump out whatever amount of water they need to be able to irrigate that land. They are not going to pump more or they're not going to pump less than that. There is no water storage facilities that they, so say, just for the heck of an argument, I need an X amount of water for these 8 or 10 acres. When I don't want it and still there is solar energy, what do I do with the water? I'll have to switch it off. I hardly have any reservoir where I can store the water and use it the next day. I have the same free electricity or free solar energy for the next day available. It's not increasing the amount of water that is being pumped out of the ground. Yes, where there are systems that used to be run first on fossil fuel engines and are now being run on solar energy, there is a saving of water that's happening because they don't run those systems.
That's not what the experts are saying. They're saying solar powered farming is actually affecting the water table.
That's what a practical user of solar energy on my farms is actually saying to you. This is what is happening. So if there is the fossil-based engine, I would have to pump water day and night to be able to fulfill the requirements of my farm. Now there's a solar energized pump. I have put in a pump that is sufficient to pump enough water to fulfill my requirements. But the shift from electricity or the shift from fossil fuel engine-based plants is environmentally correct. It is environmentally friendly. I am using on my grid, on the entire grid that I take electricity from, if I'm not using a solarized pumping system, I have 60% energy that is being produced in a clean manner. From a fossil fuel pump, I have 100% bad fuel-based energy. From a renewable solar pump, I have 100% clean energy. So a solar pump, if it pumps out the same amount of water that it is replacing some other kind of a pump with, it is not environmentally incorrect. And we've been able to actually save about 40 billion rupees a year by making an investment of 35 billion rupees a year in solarizing the 27,000 tubers in the province of Balochistan, who used to take electricity from me and never pay me the bills. So I've replaced them with solarized pumps, and now I'm saving 40 billion rupees a year. So my payback period has been just 1 year. So I am all for renewable energy pumping systems, but I am also all for getting into place regulations that ensure that the drilling process into the ground is regulated.
And who's going to be responsible for putting in those restrictions?
I think the provincial governments. Water is an issue, and also the water ministry at the federal level. I think they'll have to work together to bring that into place.
You've just talked about DG Khan, your constituency, and that's somewhere not just you but your family dates back. It's been sort of a power hold of all the political legacy you and mashallah before you, your father has had. But we've seen lately that very assured success was not to be had over there. New phenomenon emerged, and you've sort of encountered that firsthand, both in the previous elections and in this elections, the margin of victory and others. So what changed over there in not only just your constituency but in South Punjab?
We saw this change back in 1990 also. There was a wave, a political pro-PMLN wave at that time. I remember my father and 4 or 5 of our other family members were 5 amongst 8 or 10 in the opposition in the Punjab Assembly. All of us from our family in the DG Khan and 1 from Rahim Yar Khan. We also experienced that wave in the 70s when Bhutto Sahab was elected. That was another wave. And this time around in 2024, this wave wasn't there in the year 2018, by the way. It was
a manufactured wave?
It was not there. It was there in 2024 for sure. It was a crazy wave this time around. And there are two different reasons to that. I remember very clearly that when we used to sit down amongst political people and constituency-based politicians, in the year 2022, when Imran Khan was ousted, or he wasn't ousted, he was elected, there was a vote of
Yes.
no confidence against him. At that time, there wasn't one politician that I know of, even within the PTI, whoever I knew in the PTI, I'm not saying all of them were like that, but whoever I knew in the PTI, nobody wanted to take PTI's ticket because his popularity was that bad at that
Just
point in time.
before, not
Just
after.
before. Just before.
Not after his ousting.
Absolutely, just before. Then he then he latched on to this anti-US so-called slogan, which gave him a lot of traction amongst the people. Then came in the performance of the PDM government, what we had inherited, and what all we had to do to stabilize and get into the IMF program was a popularity annihilator for us. And we had to go through that in order to get things in order. I think both the inflation in the PDM time and the anti-US and anti-establishment sentiment that Imran Khan played on amongst the masses, that took his popularity to another level. Unless and until this government actually performs and brings into place an environment where people actually feel the benefits of and realize those, I think it will be very hard to get rid of that so-called popular sentiment that he still rides on.
I'm glad to, in fact, hear you say that you said that there were earlier waves and then there was the wave in 1970 and wave in 1990. I mean, the 1970 wave we knew subsided, but subsided when it did, when PMLN's wave started. And the real battleground remains Punjab, even today, for both major political parties, the one that you belong to and the other that you talked about. Is it something that you're hoping would change in the next years to come, or is it just completely, as you said, completely a performance-based thing now?
I think it's going to be performance-based. And it's also going to be the disillusionment of people with the mindset that Imran Khan and his party have.
So has it subsided a little since 24?
Yes. I think our victory against India, the respect that Pakistan now has in the Committee of Nations, and also that respect for the green passport that he used to talk of is there right now. And that's happened because of the policies and because of Allah's help, absolutely for sure, but also because of the policies and the bold attitude of the government that I'm a part of today. And that has been there because of an amazing amount of coordination and the joint effort that both the political side of the government and the establishment are making together to ensure that. And I think it has subsided to a certain extent, yes.
Now, Leghari Sahab, you of course hail from South Punjab yourself. What are your personal thoughts about, do you think it should be, South Punjab should be a separate province?
I think there should be the devolution of power for sure. There should be the devolution of power, and if we are able to achieve that with the existing provinces in place, let that be. If it does not happen, if devolution does not happen, there is going to be a demand for newer administrative units, whether it's South Punjab or whether it's 8 or 10 or 15 or 20 or 4 or 5 or 6 or whatever it is. Devolution not being there is going to increase the pressure for more units, because then that's the only way people would see their expectations being met.
But devolution is not on the agenda of any provincial government. I mean,
It hasn't been in the past. It hasn't been in the past. It's been a question of resource allocation, first of all. I think the Provincial Finance Commission award not being respected in the past, and I don't know whether it's being done right now or not. But the resources being allocated now to the more underdeveloped areas are a lot more than have been done in the past. We saw this happen in Shehbaz Sharif's government when he was the Chief Minister. And we're now seeing electric buses and roads and everything that are being invested into by the present Chief Minister's government, Mariam Nawaz's government. There has been a lot of discussion on the local government part of the legislation in the recent past. When Punjab was undergoing this entire process, I think they recently did pass a local government bill. There have been a lot of pros and cons that were deliberated upon of what kind of devolution or responsible devolution is required at the moment, what the system can actually absorb or not. But we still haven't gone through a proper formal discussion process on the local government part of the protection that's required in the Constitution. No, we haven't done that.
now, Leghari Sahib, you've been a very passionate supporter of all that Pakistan can achieve through IT. You've held that portfolio earlier. Before you, your late father was also somebody who was very passionate about this. And in fact, I remember once we went to meet him and he talked about you being very sort of committed to the idea of how much can Pakistan achieve through that. I know that's not your portfolio at the moment, but you've only managed to a major part of debt, circular debt, but also it's Pakistan as a whole, the debt servicing that we have to deal with every year is a major thing. Do you think that the potential that our IT has, or the IT exports can in the future have the potential in which we can at least take care of some of the sort of continuing issues that we have on our debt and debt servicing?
Well, our biggest issue is the trade deficit that we have. That's what actually pushes Pakistan into hyper or super kind of inflation trends that you see once our economy starts growing beyond a certain level. So the import bill increases, and then we don't have enough exports to match that. Pakistan's major issue of trade deficit could be resolved by investing more into the human resource skill development on the IT side today. I think that has a potential that no other sector has. IT is going to be, in my humble opinion, the backbone of our exports in the future. It's all virtual. You can be sitting in the middle of nowhere in Pakistan and be contributing into this export-led sector. I think that's what the government has realized. That's what Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif's major push is towards. That's why the IT ministry is actually on the front line and is amongst those key ministries, key economic ministries, which we have a lot of expectation from. This is the area where we need to invest into HR development and also trying to form relationships with the key global leaders in artificial intelligence. Now it's the time of the quantum computing in the future. That's going to raise the level of processing and increase the speed and get the entire data analytics to a point where it might be a lot more affordable in the future. So I think we need to invest into those cutting edge technology skill development part of our economy to make use of this huge population that we have, and an ever growing population, which is another big.
And you think IT can do that?
IT can. I take care.
Thank you very much for your time, Leghari
Thank you,
Saab. I'm
Janina.
very mindful of the fact that you have to also leave. Thank you for giving me
very
the time
grateful for
during your
inviting me
very
over.
busy time.
Bahut
It's
meharbani. Thank you so
it's a
much.
complete pleasure. Thank you very much for watching this episode. And if you like this, please do give feedback and do subscribe and like the content that I'm producing. Thank you.